Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with Beyond Trek podcast.
This is Beyond Trek Podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Trek Podcast and on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod.
Red alert.
I am a vampire. What a way to start the episode.
Guys, we have every excuse to be vampires. It is month almost 7 of
this,
sort of quarantine.
Oh, yeah.
And like people aren't going outside. I'm trying to work out in the house. The fires in California just subsided a bit. So we're going for walks at lunch now, which is better because we're getting some real sunlight instead of this artificial bright stuff.
And if you live in California, please no more gender reveal parties. Okay. The state cannot take another burn down.
Oh boy.
So is that what it was caused from?
One of the fires was started by a family's gender reveal party. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that is what perpetuated the meme of ever accelerating explosions of gender reveal parties.
Right. It wasn't even like a big contributing factor. It was just that was what was cool to latch onto. But if you look at a pie chart of what the causes were, it was just California was very dry. It's been very dry, and some unfortunate lightning strikes happen, but that's not cool. And
we're really bad at doing controlled burns to prevent these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's huge. And Smokey the Bear, we don't need to stop all forest fires from ever happening, because then we get into situations like this.
Yeah.
I mean, even from me.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, they're just like building houses in places that are susceptible to wildfires and then paying the authorities to not do controlled burns because they want to keep their houses. I actually don't know if they're paying the authorities. It's just don't, because they're residential areas now.
Right. So let me tell you this. This is why I was running late today. So son Nacho, had a football game today. He's on the freshman team at his high school. So they won, which was great. They won their game. Nice. And then he wanted to do lunch at Skyline afterwards, which he just dropped on me after the game. But he had us meet his girlfriend. And she's a junior in high school. And the first time he told us that, I'm thinking, are you kidding me? When I was his age, I would not have had the balls to ask out an upperclassman like that. I mean, this kid has just suave written all over him. Apparently, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but yeah. He's pulling down upperclassmen already as a freshman. So he's just living on cloud 9.
Hey, maybe her favorite dish is nachos.
That's a good one.
That's good. Yes. And
that's funny.
As a father, I'm proud.
Nacho's a great kid. Like every time I've talked to him, he's been very funny and easy to talk to. So you should be proud.
Yep. I am definitely. So let's get into some lower decks. My gosh.
Everybody, welcome. I think the consensus is this episode was amazing. But before we do that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Watney.
I'm Big J.
And I'm Dag. And this is your official spoiler alert. We are going to dig deep into this episode and all of its details. So if you haven't seen it yet and can and want to, check it out. And then come back to us. If you haven't, this is your warning. We're going to spoil the heck out of this episode. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Buckle up.
And that is the Veritas. Truth. Whatever.
Yes. So welcome to Beyond Trek. We're very glad to have you. Now let's get into it. This, I got to say, so when I'm like producing the outline for us to talk about, this one was all over the place. There was like scene 1, scene 2, and then a flashback within scene 2. And then we go back to scene 2. And then there's another flashback in scene 2. It was like crazy. The formatting of this episode was absolutely insane. It was like you get right into the action. And then there were several flashbacks, kind of like the Canterbury Tales. I think that's the
Canterbury Tales.
Yeah, it's that. And then they do that in Hyperion where they tell the story via flashbacks. They tell the story via like their personal experience. So then you get a bigger picture as the audience. It's really cool. What were you saying, Dag?
I really liked the collision of like tropes in here. We got the trial episode, we got our flashback episode, and it worked really well.
The addition of the tropes, yes.
We get the heist episode.
Oh God, you're right.
So like, yeah, this is really, really
like all my favorite.
The trial trope, the heist trope, and the flashback all mixed in to one. Okay.
And it was done well. The writers knew what they were doing when they put this episode together.
Yeah, because they don't like force feed the audience information at any point, really.
And there's a lot of stuff that can be gleaned on like rethinking it and you know, we'll get to this probably later on, but they mentioned different star dates out of order. And if you put those events in the order of star date, you can go, oh, this is what happened here, here, and here. Okay.
So it was like watching Pulp Fiction.
And they
just all out of order.
Yeah. And they don't spoon feed it to the audience. They give the audience that's real interested in those kinds of things the opportunity to think deeper about what's going on in this episode and what's gone on in the past of this episode.
Okay.
Yes. So scene one, the gang, which we get to see them all together, which is really cool. And at the beginning, I had no idea what was going to happen. So I thought it was going to be cool to see like how they all shine in their own way now that they're together in like the plot. But they end up getting thrown into like an alien prison. Sam says it looks more like a dungeon.
That's worse.
Yeah, or it's worse. Andy freaks out because she thinks she's there because she's been replicating a lot of ice lately.
She likes ice.
Yeah. And Mariner's like, this is a resort compared to what the Klingons do to you. But she's interrupted by the cell rising upwards towards an ominous light. And then we cut
straight out of Undiscovered Country.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
It's been a minute since I've seen that one.
Callback where Kirk and McCoy end up on trial for the murder of Chancellor Gorkon in a very similar chamber.
And that's what the entire trial felt like to me. It felt like it was a very nice homage. Here it is, Watney. There's if in Undiscovered Country, if you go back and watch that, at the start of the trial scene, you'll see a lot of the similarities I'm talking about that this episode of Lower Decks pulled from.
Right.
And there were several.
They're also worried. Even Mariner's worried. They pop on up to this, what looks very much like a Star Wars. Yes. Sorry. You can bleep that out if you need to. Star Wars Senate looking room. It's like, it looks like straight out of the I Am the Senate, where like they're all floating around. Yeah. The commanders we find are suspended in a beam, and there's a kind of arbiter. I'm just going to call him Arbiter because we don't know his name now. But this arbiter has this like skull gavel, and he calls everybody primes.
Welcome, primes.
Welcome, primes. And we learned that our gang is going to be witnesses, and Mariner's like, well, what's the difference between witnessing something and looking at something? Which I thought was really funny. They speak into the horn. They're supposed to speak into the horn of Candor, which apparently that's a pun.
I'm not sure if that's a pun, but what I saw from it, because like I said, there was a lot of symmetry with the trial scene in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. You had the rising up towards like this light. You get up there, just the view of the judge or an arbiter, very reminiscent of that. The same kind of thing that he was using to hit as his gavel. Some similarities there. Even this guy right here with the eye patch very much reminded me of Chang. General Chang, but I think was his eye patch on the other eye. I don't know. But then when he put up the horn, that was kind of like the line, Kirk and McCoy had to have the universal translators up to their ear in order for them to be able to communicate during the trial. And that's what I was thinking. Right. Yeah. So when I see the horn, that's what that reminded me of. I don't know if there was some other inside joke to the horn or not.
I didn't pull any additional context out of the horn itself, but I think, I like the way that you weave that General Chang, don't wait for the translation, answer me now kind of.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, yeah. For sure. Absolutely. Mariner is first. He calls her up first and she speaks into the horn, and he says, Mr. Arbiter says, you were present on the bridge when the Cerritos made contact with the Clickett ship Twerk on stardate 57818.4, which is after episode 6 of Lower Decks, Terminal Provocations, the one with Fletcher in the core and Badgie in the holodeck. So this all happened after, or began after Terminal Provocations,
which was episode 6, so like 2 weeks ago.
Episode 6.
Right on.
Yeah. So Mariner begins the flashback. It was back on that day, repair day. She takes him to the shuttle room where they're working on a shuttle and they're arguing about who's like the biggest badass. And Boimler says Roga Danar.
Roga Danar.
Yep, Roga Danar.
From TNG, the Hunted.
Yeah, mm-hmm. He apparently outsmarted Picard, and that's Boimler's vote. And Mariner's like, it's totally Khan. Khan is like a space seed dude or whatever.
Right, yeah,
which is
weird super villain.
Kind of maybe a nod to her being an augment, which we haven't discovered yet. But
this is the second reference she's made to Khan, mm-hmm. and I'm totally with you on that. You brought that up, and I'm looking for it now, and I'm like, oh man, she's just got this Khan thing coming back, and I'm like waiting for it.
Yeah.
How nice of a callback is that about Roga Danar? I like that. That is another one of those treats I like about this show, that if you are a fan that has watched everything, they're going to throw you something that's going to make you kind of jump up in a chair, your couch, and be like, oh, yeah, I know who that is.
That's this entire episode.
Yes. Yeah.
That's all they do, which is beautiful. It's kind of like saying, here's the thing you love. We love it. Let's fucking add it in here. Let's fucking mention it. Let's get you excited. Let's like make you fall more in love with Star Trek. That's like, to me, this is like a love letter to Star Trek.
Yes.
Tendi says, yeah, and Khan has a thick chest or something like that. She stands up. Dag, did we kill you?
I love that. It's so funny. It's a super like meta, hey fans, we hear you kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's just a thing. Yeah.
It's like it's such Lower Decks like chatter banter, like Tendi being like, Khan's totally hot, like it's just funny to me. She gets up to go to the bathroom and comes back. Turns out the entire rest of the ship is at red alert, and Sam says, I messed with the speakers so that they would be extra loud when red alert happens, and it turns out that the speakers just don't work anymore. He must have broken them. He intended for them to be extra loud. Anyway,
Boimler's like, Sam.
Yeah. So they go to their stations. Mariner and Boim are going up the turbo lift, and he's like, what are we gonna do? They're gonna notice that we weren't on the bridge. Why do we have to have bridge duty today? And Mariner's like, don't worry about it. Follow my lead. We're gonna make it up on the fly.
Yep.
Have a little argument here. They end up getting to the bridge.
Yeah.
And they enter as the captain is beaming back on board with like a map of some kind, and it looks like the neutral zone. You can clearly see neutral zone written on it, so it must be Romulan. It's not immediately apparent. I actually had to go back because I noticed there was words on that, so I had to go back, and I figured it was like kind of a neutral zone or something because of the way it was drawn. But Mariner and Boimler get into their seats by like crawling or something, and the Clickett captain, remember this is a flashback from when Mariner was on the bridge with the Clickett ship, and her mom and the Clickett captain argue. Freeman, the captain, asks for Mariner's advice or something like that, and Mariner's like, I don't know, but I know you'll have the best solution. And she's like, you're right, I will, or you're right about that. I'm like, damn, we love the confidence.
And then she just asks Boimler, like, what should we do?
Yeah, Boimler boims, which, as he does, makes some silly suggestions, and it seems very much like a Wesley situation to me.
And the captain said, I didn't ask you to kiss my ass. I asked you what you thought we should do.
Right. Absolutely. And if you're in a situation like this, there's no time or room or place for ass kissing. Like, you need to be solutions oriented. So the captain tells her daughter, Mariner, send them a message. And Mariner fires a phaser like right under the enemy ship just to like send them a message. But it was the wrong message. And this is kind of funny because I remember when we did the Code of Honor. I think it was Code of Honor. It was the Code of Honor episode and there's like a point towards the beginning or middle, I don't know, but like Troy and Picard are on the bridge together. Everyone's on the bridge, and there's like a situation, and Troy, it's so dumb because Troy's like a mind reader, or she's an emotion reader, so she can do it, but it's very one way. No one else can read her mind. And she turns to Picard and she just goes, sir. And then like Picard knows exactly what she's talking about. Like, he knows exactly what she means.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
Which is I think this is a ploy on the fact that everyone in TNG knows what each other is thinking all the time on the bridge. Like they just like can basically read minds. There's never any of this situation going on. And it's like a cool factor.
You know, the trope that I got out of that when she said, send them a message. And so she fires a phaser blast, and then they argue about, that's not what I meant. The trope that I like about that is in movies and TV shows, whenever the boss or the bad guy or whoever gives a nod to a henchman, and somehow that henchman knows to knock someone out or take someone away or shoot them in the head or whatever. Okay, how do you know what that head nod meant? Did that mean push the guy over the roof, or does that mean hit him in the back of the head with your gun? It's just like
a head nod.
Right. It's like, boss, you just gave me a head nod. What do I do with that?
It's because they're supposed to be in tune. They're supposed to be a team, but we know that Mariner and her mom are not in sync.
Well, okay.
This was going to happen.
But right. And one of my favorite ones, good example, Batman Begins. Scene where Bruce Wayne is confronting, was it Falcone at his bar? It was during the flashback restaurant, and he does the head nod. I guess it was to mean get this guy out of here. Well, one of the henchmen sucker punches Bruce first, and then pulls him up out of the booth. It's like, okay, what part of the head nod meant to just crack this guy in the jaw first? I just want to get him out of there.
He has one job. Maybe he just has one job, and the nod is do your job. Like, maybe it's that. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. That's like a common nod. Send them a message. Like, okay.
bring it back to Star Trek in the fourth season episode Allegiance. Picard is captured and studied. When he makes it back to his ship, he's like nodding to every member of the crew when these aliens are talking to them about what their intention was. And then he just sits down nonchalantly in his chair and is like, now, Mr. Wolf, and a force field appears around the aliens.
Yes.
He explains, like, I was totally non-verbally capable to tell my entire bridge crew here that I wanted to capture you, and I didn't have to say anything. And I was like, wow, that's in tune.
Yes, it's a very TNG thing, especially if in the context of Trek, and especially with TNG, that everyone on the bridge knows what each other is thinking, and they're just that much of a well-oiled machine. They don't squeak at all. Yeah. So in this instance, on the least important ship, doing the least important jobs, they're going to be squeaky. So
I like that this last scene here up on the screen. And if you're just listening to us, we do have a YouTube video that accommodates the audio with slides from the episode. And in this particular moment, the entire bridge crew is reacting from a ship impact, and they're all leaning to one side. And I just thought that was really funny because it's like every time the Enterprise got hit, they all had to like react, and sometimes they all reacted in different ways. And it almost looks like they're dancing to Thriller here.
Oh.
Especially that guy in the back, man. He's getting into it. The blue guy.
Thriller.
I've been waiting for this. Okay, so the arbiter gets really upset with Mariner for basically not telling him what he wants to hear, because she just doesn't have the information as a witness. And after by the way, after Mariner fires the phaser under the enemy ship in the flashback, they get on the hail real quick. They're like, target the bridge, and then they end up getting in a firefight. So Mariner is held in contempt of court because she's not saying what he wants to hear. Basically just telling him spaceships don't have maps, they have stellar cartography. She's almost dunked in this like tank of contempt is what it's called, which is like a bunch of eels basically with like lights under it. I don't know. I
wanted to make two references here. One, in the flashback, when Freeman asks Boimler for a reference, he's like, let's do a Crazy Ivan, which, if you're not familiar with a Crazy Ivan is, it's a maneuver that is pulled in Firefly. Wash calls for it, which originates from the Hunt for Red October.
Is the Crazy Ivan in the movie?
Well, Boimler, which movie?
Is it Serenity?
I don't know if it's actually in Serenity or if it's just one of the episodes. I think
it's one of the episodes.
I noticed it and I Googled it. It was like, Firefly. And then Reddit was like, also Hunt for Red October. And I was like, all right.
It was in Hunt for Red October, but I know it was not in Serenity. So it had to be one of the episodes, but yeah.
And then the second thing to point out is that these are shrieking eels. And if you're a fan of The Princess Bride, there you go.
The shrieking eels.
The shrieking eels, which
it was the pilot episode.
Oh,
Firefly,
is it?
Which is called Serenity.
Which
is why I was like, what the fuck? Because I thought in the beginning of the movie Serenity, they're pulling off a heist.
Yes.
Remember? And I thought it was like the getaway scene to get away from the Reavers.
When they like swoop down and grab the vehicle they're on.
Yeah, that's what I was like thinking.
And they get like busted. Was like I think Wash called it barn buster.
Yeah, the barn door.
It was something. The barn opened the barn door. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, sorry to derail. I just like had to get that right in my head.
I just want to go a little bit. A Crazy Ivan is when you have one engine going full forward and another engine going full reverse to cause the ship or the vessel to spin around very quickly. Back to you.
Swallowing my water, sorry. So yeah, eels, blah blah blah. She gets like trapped in a containment field of her very own and almost dunked in the liquid or the water or whatever. Boimler steps in and he's like, don't do that, or like I can tell you more. So they freeze her. And the guy's like, she may go uneeled for now, which I thought was funny. Boimler steps in, and then it's Sam's turn to testify.
It's funny watching Tendy's behavior here because she's definitely going like, I don't know anything about that. And you're like, what's Tendy know? And we don't find out till later, of course. But then, yeah, as you said, Rutherford steps up to the plate.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy's whole problem is that they should know more than they do. Like he does not get how they are not fully versed in everything that's going on the ship because he thinks that's what Starfleet does.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So we learned that Sam's full name is Samanthan.
How did I miss that?
Samanthan Rutherford. The the Arbiter says, tell me about Stardate 57791.1.
Which is before. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No, you're right. It is before. It's before Mariners flashback, which I didn't actually get, Dag. Because hers is 57818 and Rutherford's is 57791. But does that make sense?
Yes. That Rutherford's events happened before Mariner's events, and Tendy's events happen after Rutherford's events, but we don't get a start date for Tendy's events.
We don't. Mm-mm. But interesting. I have to chew on that a little bit. Anyway, Sam says it's his turn, and he's like, I can tell you what I know. I have perfect memory with this thing. What date do you want to know about? And he offers like other star dates as options, but he's like, no, I want the one I asked for. He's like, you're not going to like it. So we cut to Sam rotating EPS capacitors because apparently they overheat when you leave them in one direction for too long, which is such a cute little Trek nugget. He's like in the hallway, like just rotating them by hand. Rotate. And then Shax and the chief engineer show up. What's his name? The chief engineer. Do we know?
Billups?
It's the B. Billups, yes.
Yeah,
Billups. Okay. Shax and Billups show up. And the show kind of begins. And this is a very, 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 very fun sequence. Apparently he needs to have his shots. They tell him he needs to update his thing, his implant. And Billups asks if he's had his shots, and Shax is like, if you haven't, you might get denobulin flesh-eating bacteria, which will eat right through his underpants. Denobulins. They're my fave. His implant starts to count down 10, 9, 8, and then he boots down. He passes out. The first reboot is the download of the software itself. Sam wakes up in a shuttle with Shax and Billups, and he has apparently nerve pinched 2 separate Vulcans, which he has a Vulcan implant, so I can understand. The Vulcan implant probably has like Sus Mana, like or something.
Yes.
Apparently it takes control of him during updates. He says he usually likes to do these updates in his quarters.
I can see why.
Yeah.
Well, Billups is an engineer who probably knows how to handle this thing and is making sure Rutherford has plausible deniability. That could be a thing that's happening.
Oh,
hold on, look at the shuttle real quick before it fades away. That shuttle, that Vulcan shuttle, same shuttle design that was used in Star Trek: The Motion Picture when Spock was being couriered to the Enterprise that broke down, has hazard lights on. Yeah.
There's also one featured in after season 4, the season 4 introductions of Deep Space Nine. There's a Vulcan shuttle that's moving under the docking pylon.
God.
Oh,
so good. I love when Spock rejoins the Enterprise in the motion picture. His outfit, he just looks so good.
Oh,
like
cool.
Gives me chills.
I heard you all
really
fucked
good.
up your warp drive. I'm here to fix it.
Yeah.
They're like,
permission to come aboard. He's like, granted, sir, blah, blah, blah. And he just walks away. So good. Just
granted, sir. Granted. I didn't hear, but did you mention the names of the Vulcans that Rutherford took out?
Spock and Spock.
Spock and Spock. I'm like, that's got to be the John of Vulcan. Everybody on Vulcan, like half of them are all named Spock.
Oh, and here I thought it was Shax being racist.
I thought he was
calling all Vulcans Spocks.
That's how I took it.
Dude, I didn't take it that way.
Yes.
Ow.
He said the 2 Spocks. I think that's what. Yeah, I think that was just a dig at.
I don't want to laugh at this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Why you gotta take it that way, yo?
I'm just saying.
I like Rutherford's plight because I can appreciate trying to do a driver update or firmware update on something and then just have it just go to shit. And
yeah, I can imagine you're familiar.
Oh yes. I know what that's like. Too much working in IT. So yeah, I appreciate Rutherford's part.
I really like this image of Vulcan. We know this is like a Vulcan museum sort of.
I did not know that at the time. I didn't put it two and two together. It took me a minute to understand what was going on because it's very, very fast paced. It all happens very quickly. And so my first watch through, I was like, okay, museum, unknown museum. Pretty fucking funny that they just say they're going to a museum. Then they like, you know, they jump out, they push him out, and then he blacks out again. And it's like, where are they? I didn't actually know where they were until I realized later that it was on Vulcan. But yes, they are on Vulcan at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a kind of they're part of the Federation. Can't they just ask them for that?
Yeah, that's one thing that goes unanswered here is like, why don't we attack fellow members of the Federation? I don't know.
I think it was.
Why are you fan dancing them? I don't know.
Right. I think it was just one of those like we're supposed to be in the same shoes with Rutherford during these continuous reboots where he wakes up and doesn't know what the hell's going on. Well, the audience doesn't know what's going on. It's like, well, okay, wait a minute, we're right there with you. Why are you guys jumping out of a Vulcan shuttle? What the hell is happening? And you don't get that answered. You're just, it's like, just go with it.
Along for the ride.
Because he's going with it. Yeah.
You said it, both of you. We're riding along with Rutherford. And
it's the story's designed to do that. The way that they're telling the story is designed to do that via short flashbacks of different people. And
so disjointed to keep the audience going, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what I was doing the whole time. I was like a kid watching this. It was amazing.
Dag, do you have a screenshot of Rutherford with the feathers, which is the homage?
You were getting ahead of us, Jay.
Sorry. I'll just sit here and drink my drink.
And Rutherford's like, Sam's trying to tell him, like, I don't know what's going on. Like, what's happening? And then he's like, when we get to the museum, we'll have a short amount of time or something.
So I want to talk about this frame for a second before we move further in the plot.
Oh God, look how much is in this.
For those of you listening, we are looking at a screenshot of one side of the Vulcan Museum in which there are several types of ships featured here. And I'm just going to point out the ones that I know, and I know that you guys might know them too, but for the audience, we have how do I do this? Control click. There we go. Okay, so we have a D7 Klingon cruiser here, which was also a Romulan ship in the original series, which we sort of retconned as like a Klingon Romulan technology share because the original series didn't really stick to a ship design. The original Bird of Prey was actually a Klingon vessel before it became a Romulan vessel. And so those are just some continuity errors that I think are really relevant to an idea I have about this episode.
Okay.
Then we have a Vulcan science vessel here. We have a Ferengi shuttle. We have a next generation era shuttlecraft. We have what I believe to be a Tholian vessel up here in the top left. This center ship I cannot place, and for the life of me, I tried searching so hard, but it's difficult because
that's Jem'Hadar.
Is that a Jem'Hadar ship?
That's a Jem'Hadar ship.
Oh, thank you, Jay. Yep. I knew you'd know it. I don't know why there's a Jem'Hadar ship in a Vulcan museum.
No, I just looked it up.
But isn't the yellow jobby there?
I'm all over this. What's that?
Isn't the thing Goodyear? Yeah, right. I that's a worker bee. Isn't that a worker bee that we see kind of floating around in the motion picture and Wrath of Khan during the?
I don't remember the protrusions coming out of the front like this, but you could be right. It could be a worker bee. I associated those with the Vulcan ship that they've commandeered. So maybe
it totally looks like there's no stripies on it. But
it could totally be a worker bee.
I may be wrong. It's just when I saw that was the first thing I thought was, I think that's what that is. But so we got the Jem'Hadar ship, the D7.
And the whole purpose of pointing this out is to just be like, look at the collection of research the animators have to do to pull all of these ships from their various eras and put them all together here in this museum on Vulcan, which implies a sense of sentimentality before unseen on the homeworld.
Is that obelisk right there from 2001?
It might be a reference to 2001, and I applaud you with that, because I have found a lot of references to other franchises in here. We already talked about Princess Bride and Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 2001 here, and our main villain, or not a villain, antagonist, kind of reminds me of the villain from Galaxy Quest, with like the bolted on eye patch, and he's kind of green, stuff like that. But not precisely. Not precisely. Right. So, it's sort of conditioned me to look real deep and maybe find some associations that may not really be there or weren't intended. But yeah, you could be right. This could be the obelisk from, looks like it. Or it could be TARS from Interstellar, who was like a rectangular robot.
Oh, I love him.
TARS is great. But the other thing,
proportionally,
it's too big.
It's not TARS for sure. Right, it's way too big, but it definitely could be the obelisk.
Yeah, proportionally, the obelisk fits. Yeah.
I feel like people. That was the obelisk, if I remember correctly, was discovered on the moon.
Not at first.
Or a moon of Jupiter?
No, it was first on Earth, and what it was doing was testing the humanity, or the evolution of the species on Earth. So the very beginning of the movie, those the apes were around it on Earth. It's a little spotty because it's been a while since I've seen it, but first it was on Earth. Then it was either the same one or different one was on the moon.
Now, I just want to interject. We're talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
2001: Space Odyssey. Yes. Now It was the sequel. 2010 was when they found an obelisk that was near Jupiter.
Okay.
If I'm recalling right, it was these things were placed at different points of testing of discovery. Yes, evolution of discovery of technological leaps.
Okay, yes. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the second obelisk is on the moon, and that's where you see him traveling to the moon from a space station in the movie, but why it was on the moon, I don't know, because it's supposed to signify using tools like the first one on Earth. But anyway, maybe
bringing it back to the episode.
Maybe the evolution came from the evolution of Hal and not so much the evolution of humans.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch it. Yeah,
I don't know. It's worth another rewatch. Maybe we'll do an episode on that or something.
Yeah.
So there's one more. There might be two more things in this capture here that are worth noticing. One, in the back, you've got what appears to be a woman in a full gown and a head covering, which to me reminds me of how Amanda appeared in Star Trek 4 to Spock after he was doing his sort of testing.
Mm-hmm.
She had a white gown with a head covering.
Yeah, when Spock was doing his SAT test.
Right. Correct.
It's very
one
similar.
Of the cool things that's here is the full Starfleet security armor that we haven't seen since, I believe, Star Trek 3.
You are correct.
And we've got the armor plating and the helmet with the Delta on it. It is way cool. It's nice to see. It's 2380. This is still in service. The armor's probably been updated in protective ability, but not aesthetic. It's just really cool to see that. The people who are writing for this show are doing it right. The people who are animating for this show are digging deep into the lore. This is really great fan service. And I know we've talked on this one slide for 10 minutes.
No, I think there's a lot to unpack and we should do that.
Right. Well, then we have to flip over to Rutherford's view, and there's more stuff behind him.
Okay, let's do it.
Wow.
And the whole time Big J's sitting here thinking, am I going to have to edit a 2-hour podcast?
Yep.
It's a 24-minute.
Always.
Yep. Thanks, Waddy.
So I'll get through this one quickly because there's not as much. We've got 3 Federation shuttlecraft. We know that Shax is climbing this pylon to get to a bird of prey, a Romulan bird of prey, because you can see sort of the underbelly of the Phoenix there. But in the background, in the left over here, we've got the Toplanahoth, or another vessel like the Toplanahoth, which is the Vulcan survey team that arrived at first contact in in Star Trek First Contact and met with Zefram Cochrane. So just another really cool in the lore reasons why things would be in a shuttlecraft. We know that up top here, we've got an original series shuttlecraft versus a next gen shuttlecraft. Yeah. So, that could be like the Galileo. There's just again,
there's a lot
very
to look
cool
at
fan
here.
service. Thank you.
It's great. We love it. The guard approacheth and he's like, Shax is like, do something to distract him, do the fan dance. The guard's like, hey, you're distracting me. It's pretty funny. Sam, once again, look how pretty the fans are. Beautiful. No, you're fine. You're fine. Sam shuts down as the guard points a gun at him.
So you know what the fan dance is from?
Yep. Final Frontier.
Mm-hmm. Uhura did the fan dance to distract the guards on their way to whatever that outpost was.
Paradise City on Nimbus 3.
Thank you.
He shuts down again and then wakes up in the middle of space, it looks like, although his grav boots are clinging onto what we discover is the Klingon bird of prey that was just stolen from the Vulcan Museum of Ancient Historical Ships.
Why the hell is he out there? Why is he out there? And why is he on?
Yeah, there's so many questions I have about how did they get this here? Why is he up there alone?
Yeah, the Billups is out there with him and his nitrogen, has nitrogen poisoning or something like that. Mm-hmm. Nitrogen intoxication. He mentions Mark Twain having a gun and Tasha Yar, that garbage bag's right behind you. Mm-hmm. Pretty funny. Not funny so much because we know Tasha dies, but anyway, he carries him into the cloaked Vulcan shuttle, bumping him along the way into the cloaked bird of prey that's surrounding them. Mm-hmm. He restarts again. He collapses, hits the console, and the ship goes to warp. He wakes up on Gorn.
I think this is Cestus 3, the planet where Kirk...
You think it's Cestus 3?
I think it is, because if you just pay attention to like the rock formations, they're very much like...
Yeah, look at the rock formation in the background.
You mean this background?
No, on the
no, exactly the background that Watney is pointing out behind Watney in the video. The sharp, jagged, angular rocks. That was a planet called Cestus 3 where Kirk fought the Gorn, and this is absolutely, at least if not the actual planet, it's a call out to it.
Right, you're right. No, I'm at the one behind Rutherford in that image there. That very much looks like the famous. We go to this one spot in California every time we need to have a rock formation to film scenes with. That location's used several times.
Look behind me.
I know, I saw that. Yeah.
That is the actual formation. Like it's of course you can have a Gorn wedding anywhere. I'm sure they can travel wherever they want. But actually I don't know, after seeing this, the Gorn seem very Deinonychus-y.
The name of the place is called Vasquez Rocks in California.
Yes, Vasquez Rocks. I was just saying that Vasquez, it looks more like Vasquez Rocks behind Rutherford than it did behind you, Watney, but I could be wrong. It's just I'd have to.
I think the one behind Watney looks like somebody took an illustration of the classic scene that Kirk runs up and just illustrated.
It's in Picard too.
It looks great. Yeah. Yep. It's funny that you say they act like Deinonychuses, because Dr. Phlox in an episode of Enterprise said that they were like velociraptors.
So velociraptors in Jurassic Park are the same thing as Deinonychus. Velociraptors historically in reality were like chicken size, like they were very small, maybe a little bit bigger than a chicken, but Deinonychus was the human size, like scary. They can eat your face off like with one chomp. Those Deinonychus is basically what they use to model velociraptors in Jurassic Park. So I'm not surprised he said velociraptor, because that's like more well known.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Not to get nerdy. Look at the Gorns. I can't believe Gorn weddings like.
Look at the flowers on her head and the nice dress. And the guests are all sitting in like these fold out chairs.
Earthy looking.
Mazel tov.
So nice. It's so nice. And I mean, honestly, from someone watching this episode, it's not like the Gorn in the white dress is super obvious about gender, besides the fact that they just maybe they have a towel wrapped around them. I don't know, but I was like, this is such a cool wedding.
Honestly, they could have done like, here's an actual Gorn wedding. It's like a Klingon wedding. It's different. It's not human like, much less like Catholic looking, but like.
But that's what's funny is that this is relatable. This is relatable to us.
It's relatable in the fact that they made it that way. It did. I'm not sure that a Gorn wedding would. I guess it canonically does look like this, but I think it's funny. I think they said, "Oh no, kissy kissy." It's like taking dolls and kissing them, like for the audience. Like that's basically what it is.
Why can't a Gorn wedding look like a Catholic wedding? I mean, why not?
That's going to be the byline if you don't watch it.
I've been to them; they look similar.
It's a good byline. I saw this and I'm looking at this, and for some reason, I'm waiting for like them to break out with White Wedding here. I just thought that the Billy Idol song was going to kick in, and
that's funny.
It just felt like that.
If that had happened, I would have rolled out of my chair.
The Gorn do not like that he's there. He was not invited. He's neither on the groom nor the bride's side.
He's a wedding crasher.
Oh, he's a wedding crasher.
And this is how we treat wedding crashers.
Yeah,
Whoa.
They attack him, and he's like, "Ha, take this, Gorn implant." And so he passes out, but he wakes up again. And he's still at the wedding getting gnawed on. We learn that this is where the story of Rutherford's experience with the Romulan, the B mission comes to an end. I want to know what happens to Sam after this, but we never learn because that's a fun part.
I want to know, like, if you see in the scene there, the Vulcan ship has crashed into the planet near this wedding. The wedding goes on after this crash scene has happened. Where are Billups? Where are Shax? Where are the two Spocks? How did this ship crash here? And why did we just abandon a bird of prey cloaked in deep space?
Hey,
I don't know.
We don't know, and neither does Rutherford. That's the whole point, because he keeps blacking out and coming to.
I have ideas. I'll share them with you.
I thought you would.
At the conclusion of our review.
Okay.
So we go back to the Arbiter in present day. Sam's like, I'm just telling you what I remember. And Tendi is again acting suspicious. She's absolutely, definitely involved in something. And Sam isn't being helpful to the Arbiter. So they lift him up next to Mariner, and he's like, eels? And she's like, dude, are you even paying attention? Tendi says, stop hurting him, basically. And she's like, okay, it's my turn to testify. Mm-hmm. We can't talk about it. He's like, you better talk about it. She's like, I guess I'll talk about it. So there's no stardate associated with Tendi's flashback. Her and Ransom were in the Romulan zone during this. We come to find out. She's like, I get the best duty ever. I get to tidy the conference rooms. Apparently it's a major assignment. She's talking to Mariner about it. Mariner's like, that's lame. And she's like, but when you talk about, like, you could talk about the Borg anywhere. And she's like, but when you talk about the Borg in a conference room, it becomes a conference.
She has a freaking lint roller. Are you kidding me? Because there's a cat that's usually sitting in one of these.
Yeah. Lint rolling to Anna's hair for sure. I thought it was funny that Mariner, after Tendi left, was again like jealous. She was like, I never get to clean the conference rooms. So yeah, Tendi gets to basically clean the chairs and shit like that. The guy, we go back to the Arbiter, and he's like, you have to give me this information. She's like, I would risk death by eels to avoid giving you classified info. Mm-hmm. And he's like, then continue.
What was actually, he's like, are you so stubborn as to not reveal this? And she's like, yes, that's correct. Just boom.
Yeah. He's like, then continue. Yeah.
But there's there's a moment here where what is it? Ransom is talking, but you don't get to hear what he's saying because Tendi is thinking over what Ransom is saying.
Yes.
And I was like trying to listen to it like multiple times to be like, what's he saying? Is it just gibberish, or is he actually saying something about the mission? He's basically saying, if
Clear the room.
This is not a Starfleet thing. Did you hear any of that, Watney? Of what he was saying?
Oh, I had subtitles on, but he just walks in and he's like, Lieutenant, clear the room. That's what he basically said.
And
then they have matching tattoos. That's fucking funny.
Well, no, their eyes, it's like they're redacted.
They're all censored.
They're right. Their identities are redacted.
Yeah, they're doing that for the audience to say like it's funny.
This is
all of this is extremely meta during this point because they're bleeping out even words like Romulan, which Tendi can't tell him. So it's just funny. It's very, very meta and self-aware. This is the map.
Beep, Yulin.
So when Tendi is thinking about how cool it is that she's being picked for this mission, her subtitles are talking about what she's thinking about. But in the background, Ransom is speaking, and he's basically saying, this is an off the books mission. If Starfleet, if any of this gets back to Starfleet, they're going to deny her involvement. Make sure that you have, cleared everything with your families, and they know that if you're not coming back, nobody's going to know where you are. You're going to be buried in an unmarked grave.
Mm-hmm.
I had to listen to that a lot of times to pull that out of what he was saying over what Tendi, because I was hoping it was in the subtitles, but it wasn't. And then they go and they reveal their tattoos. I just wanted to
cool tattoos.
Pull that to offer that.
It looked like they were spots that would hurt too. Jeez.
Hey, we should all get matching TNG Delta tattoos if you guys want.
I might be up for that. Yeah.
Here, on the neck.
I don't know about on the neck. That looks like that would hurt. Maybe what about like right on the shoulder, like on the side or something?
Are you Starfleet material or not, Jay?
I am not getting a neck tattoo. If that makes me not Starfleet, then that's what that makes me.
Watney, where do you want to get the tattoo? Someplace reasonable, family friendly.
We don't need to get tattoos.
I'll take that back, and we can circle back later and discuss it.
Circle back, boy.
I think I might want mine to be a tramp stamp.
It's very fitting.
Oh, boo!
If you're listening to us or watching this video, if you want Jay to get a tramp stamp, just leave a comment. If we get over 6 comments, we'll pay for Jay to get a tramp stamp.
This better not happen.
6 comments. It's all we need. 6.
Jesus.
If it's one person leaving 6 comments, that works.
No. God. Watch that be the thing that like just explodes our viewer and listenership is we want to see Jay get a Starfleet Delta as a tramp stamp tattoo. Thanks, guys.
Look, I do what I can for you, Big J.
I appreciate it.
They throw Tendi a rifle. She's like, shit. They basically dragged her in as the cleaner, which the cleaner to me is also maybe like a John Wick reference.
Yes.
He has like a guy he pays to come in and like deep clean his house. Anyway. So they are on the stolen bird of prey. Let me find where I am here. Yeah, so they're on the bird of prey. Look how pretty that ship looks inside. It's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Tendi tries to tell them like the whole time, like this has been a misunderstanding, blah, 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 blah. And the guy keeps interrupting her like, we're being scanned.
No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not.
Yes, we are. Yeah, it was pretty annoying actually to me, but
I was there with you.
It's supposed to be annoying, I guess. Anyway, so they keep getting scanned more and more, and we see like more and more warbirds.
I totally thought that they were going to get caught here because the warbirds are just pointing right at them. And first there's 1, then there's 2, then there's 3. And if you can see behind me, I've got the scene where there's all 4 of them surrounding this cloaked baby bird of prey, which, you know, given size, that's like, yeah, you're all dead. I don't know what's happening here, but
yeah, they're like, she doesn't know what the mission is. Even she doesn't know what is even going on.
Right.
And I think maybe the warbirds pointed directly at them and scanning is kind of like a play on the cold cloaking technology anyway. Like they can't even track their own cloaking.
Right.
Like,
it's that good.
Anyway, we get to see Tendi dressed up all badass in like the special ops cat suits. And then
I like that they're on Romulus here. This is before the supernova.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're on Romulus.
Yeah. Tendi's like, Commander, didn't you hear what I was saying? He's like, yeah, you have cleaning duty. It's very impressive for someone your age. And then they beam down to the just outside the Romulan Star Empire and like main council building or whatever. There's 2 Romulans patrolling the halls. You know what I hate? Freemans. Oh yes, they're the worst. And then Tendi like pulls them back and beats them up, and they start running down the hall after them. And one of the guys is like, did you just, or Ransom, I think he even says, did you just apologize to them? And his buddy's like, you're playing some real fucked up mind games. Like she doesn't even realize when she's just being nice. They enter a doorway to go retrieve the package and that they're there for. And Tendi is left to basically wait. And the door opens once again. They come running back with the package, and she martial arts all of the Romulan guards. We learned today that she can do this.
Yes. This is the second lower decker who has like major security tactical skills that we didn't know about. And I was very much like, well, you know, as an Orion with pheromones, maybe she's had to beat up some people who were getting too close.
Yeah.
Well, but I would think that in Starfleet that would be a standard class of standard training would be hand-to-hand combat. Now, that doesn't mean that you come out of it being an expert at it or maybe not even good at it, but there's no way you're sending, knowing the dangers of space and everything out there, that you're going to have someone go through a 4-year program and not spend quite a good bit of time learning how to defend yourself unarmed. That's just my thought.
I really appreciate how Ransom here is like, I don't know how, I have no clue what's going on here, because I'm right there with him going, what is happening?
Yeah, Ransom's like, she was just supposed to beam us out, man. And Tendi just like, fuck shit up. It's great. It reminds me of like my OC Jen when we did that like Dominion War infiltration plot. That was like super fun because she's a doctor. Mm-hmm. So it's like
very medical. Like
Tendi. was she like supposed to be on a mission like this? Well, yeah, it turns out that all Starfleet officers are capable of things like this. So, back on the Cerritos. It was a successful mission. Ransom tells her she's awesome, but we'll have to deny this ever happened. He goes back to cleaning. There's some kind of container behind her. She doesn't ask questions.
She's like, this is Philip's chair.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like idolizes the senior staff a little.
Well, yeah, anything to, and she likes that. She likes her job. And if she gets a chance to impress someone, because that was her thing. I can't recall which episode it was. It was the one with the guy that was, who was going to be ascending.
She has to be liked. Yeah.
Right. She wants people to like her. Yeah.
And in this case, she still wants them to like her. She's like, hi, everybody. Mm-hmm. But we go back to the Arbiter in present time. And he's like, you didn't do that or something. There's no way you did that. And she's like, you're right. I didn't.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. Mariner, Sam, and Tendi get thrown into the eels. It's like kind of fine. Like they're not dying. In fact, Tendy's like, I think you're hurting the eels.
Oh, poor. She's so great.
I know. Boimler finally steps in and he's like, listen, we don't know what you're asking about because we don't know anything. We never know anything. The lower decks never knows what's going on. And the prime guy like kind of picks him up and then like tosses him to the ground. And Boimler's like, even sometimes the senior officers don't know what's going on.
I like how the arbiter here is like, what? You expect me to believe that all of your Starfleet people aren't heroes and great at everything they do? And Boimler's like, yes.
Yeah, you need to believe that. And that's like a really great point because like all Starfleet captains and commanders that we've seen have faults and get messed up in stuff that they're not supposed to get messed up in.
And he
like Cisco, for example, has done really bad things and he says he can live with that. He can put that to bed and live with it. And so like they mention just a few experience or a few things I think later.
Well, it seems like the outside aliens, and this really focuses on that. It really seems like to the outside observer, when it comes to Starfleet, there is this thing where everyone seems to think that the Starfleet there are a bunch of Archers and Pikes and Kirks and Ciscos and Picards and Janeways. Everyone and Rikers and Spocks, everyone's at the top of their game. Everyone in Starfleet is just the best of the best of the best. So it's actually strange to think that you could even get an officer, much less 4, in the same room that would not have an idea of what's going on and not be of that caliber. And it's because in these scenarios, in the first contact scenarios, and a lot of the big meat of what Starfleet does, they're presenting the best of their officers, the best of their crew. So to these aliens that don't interact that much with anyone in Starfleet, but the impression they get is they know about all the front runners of Starfleet, all the big names. You just think, okay, well, everyone's like that. So for Tendi and Rutherford, and Mariner and Boimler to say, we don't know what's going on, I can see that as like bullshit. You don't know what's going on. You're in Starfleet. All of you know everything. You're all the best of the best. But finding out, no, that's not actually true.
Right. It's made of humans and humanity.
Yes.
So nothing is ever going to be perfect. And that's kind of the point, I would think, which Q doesn't understand, which we'll get there.
Speaking of Q.
Yeah. Speaking of Q, we cut to Boimler flashbacks, or at least he wasn't there, but just audience flashbacks of the senior staff on the bridge of the Cerritos. And the Q appears, voiced by the man himself,
John Delancey.
Yes. And he puts them in a chess game, but there's cards
and goalposts.
He has like a spoon looking thing. Goalpost, a soccer ball shows up and the captain's like, oh, it's soccer. And then it sprouts arms and legs. And it's like, what does it say? It says, what's humanity all about? It's puzzle time. It's puzzle time. Soccer ball. And then it like bounces on Tana's face.
I think it's a cool callback to the episode Cupid, where Q puts the Enterprise, the TNG crew, in its own Robin Hood instance, little pocket dimension.
Yeah, Q always likes to throw people like in weird, alternate, weird
crazy
shit.
Curved soccer ball.
Yeah, or like dressing up as like a French army marshal or something. So we go through like a couple of experiences with the bridge crew. So for example, Freeman's flashback on how she's not perfect all the time is the Q thing. Then we go to Ransom, where he just dates a bunch of aliens all the time and doesn't really know much about them. And Mariner's like, by the way, that's a salt vampire. And he's like, they haven't been around for hundreds of years, or they've supposedly died more than a century ago. And she's like, fine, whatever. Turns out it is assault vampires. Yep.
I like this beauty shot.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
We have a Centaur class up here, or maybe a Vancouver class.
Yes, not Centaur. Centaur doesn't have a secondary hull. It's just got the warp nacelles coming out at angles from the saucer. So yeah, that might be
still just cool to see. The starbase in all its glory.
Oh yeah, I love starbases. Ta'ana walks into the ship walks into a bridge and says, I think that there's people that are turning into alternate realities of themselves and they don't know me. And then we see it from her perspective and everyone's like a bug insect or something.
You've got...
it's basically the Play on Crushers episode where she starts to have people like forget about her and disappear. And they don't
remember me.
Remember me. Yeah.
So there's an image here. And when this comes into focus, you can see like Mariner's over here on the left with orange eyes, and Boimler is a mosquito. It looks like Shax appears to be a woman here and has those same purple veins like from that species that was featured in Half a Life. Mm-hmm. I don't remember their name. And then you've got Ransom back here with that Snidely Whiplash kind of mustache. And then he's also... How do we make him
look different? A mustache.
Yeah, give him a mustache. and he also has the alien forehead of that alien species that was in Enterprise that went to... had a war with the Denobulans.
Right.
To top it all off, Freeman has the goatee, the whole Mirror Universe reference there. And then... Mm-hmm. Is male here, or at least appears to be male. Mm-hmm. It's wacky. That's what this scene is. It's wacky.
Yeah. It's like in some cases gender bent versions of the bridge crew on the Cerritos, and Ta'ana ends up just having walked into like a different ship on accident. She's not actually in an alternate dimension, and then we get to see the alternate version of her, which is fucking hilarious.
It's just a human doctor, voiced by the same actress.
She was on the wrong ship.
Oh, very nice.
Did she say something like all these ships look alike or something like that?
I didn't really know what to take away from this flashback, because I was like, she comes in as like, nobody recognizes me, and it's like, it's weird. And literally she's in a situation where nobody would recognize her. So like, so was she actually on a parallel ship, or was she literally just not on the right ship?
She was on the wrong ship.
Yeah, wrong ship.
Yeah, the thing is like, it's a play on the Crusher thing, but she was actually just on the wrong ship because it's a starbase, which I think is great. Because in the episode with Crusher, weren't they on a starbase or something, picking somebody up, going to a conference, something like that,
and they had to return to the starbase to be in the exact same spot to get Crusher out of the warp bubble. No, that makes much more sense now. I feel better, because I was like, what's going on here? But it's the Alhambra, which is another city in California for the California class.
Alhambra, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Boimler is still talking to Mr. Arbiter, and he's giving his big Starfleet speech, which every critical situation must have one, especially trials. Senior officers are not infallible heroes. He says, did Picard know about the Borg? But Picard did kind of know about the Borg ahead of time.
He says...
Then he says, did Kirk know there was a giant Spock on Phylos?
Hey, I got my giant Spock reference.
I know. I thought of you when I heard that. Giant Spock is officially continually canon.
Yes.
Did Crusher know about the ghost and the lamp thing?
Oh, yeah.
he's mentioning all like the weirdest like Trek stuff a little bit.
The notorious ones.
Yeah, it's the ones that the fans have gone like, oh, why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's super self-aware, and I just love that. Boimler says what they did was all for good. He says that everyone, he points to like the whole Senate, quote, and he's like, you guys are all wrong. You should be on trial for questioning them. Turns out, And I think we saw this in the, turns out they turned the lights on.
And they're at
the arbiter is the Imperium magistrate Klar, who was in the container that Ransom and Tendi went and stole. Mm-hmm. And they needed the bird of prey to do that, which was why Rutherford stole that. And then
they needed the map.
They needed the map
to get through the neutral zone.
Yes. So very fun conclusion. The trial's not a trial, it's a party. There's balloons everywhere. It's a beam of celebration. Apparently the senior officers were just quiet the whole time. Like they could fully talk. They weren't being like silenced. It was great. They were in like he's like the alien guy, Imperium magistrate Klar, is arguing with Boimler. Like, what do you mean? This isn't a trial. This is one of our nicest event silos. I got married here. And then the event coordinator comes in. He's like, all right, Klar, time's up. You paid for 22 minutes.
And the other guy was sitting there waiting with his birthday cake for his daughter that was turning 100.
It's fucking funny because it's like the episode's 22 minutes long.
Right. Right at the 22-minute mark is when he says that too.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Mariner once again argues with him that it's kind of stupid. Anyway, we jump back up to the Cerritos where we were at in the slideshow before. And Freeman's like, okay, I'm going to be more clear with the crew. The word Cerritos will be synonymous with clarity moving forward. And then the gang is like, well, in that case, what's all this classified shit? And it playfully backfires. And she's like, never mind. I'm not going to tell you. They're like, even though you were wrong about the situation, it's important that we tell you these things, blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Then we get the last scene is of them leaving that room into the hall, and Boimler says he knew the whole time it was a party. Right. Mariner's like, that's bullshit. And then Q disappears magically in the hallway. He's like, choose your weapon. Mine is the mind. And Mariner's like, go away. We've had enough random bullshit for today. Go mess with Picard or something. And he's like, Picard always quotes Shakespeare and makes wine. And that's like the end of the episode. Cuts out. But look how beautiful. It's just everything looks so good.
I love that they brought Q back in his post-atomic horror judge outfit. Mm-hmm. They even returned the lion head things there. And the necklace is spot on. It's
floating chair.
Yeah.
Now, this is my one gripe about this. And I know it's going to sound awfully petty, possibly, or just nitpicky, but okay. So either John Delancey is, I was about to say he's out of character with his portrayal of Q, but it couldn't be, because the way that he plays Q, the way that he voices Q, when you hear John Delancey speak, that's Q. It's not like he's changing his voice or mannerisms, anything like that. In this episode, I could tell at some points that yes, that was him, but it didn't sound like Q. It was almost kind of disappointing. It felt like it was the same thing that I said about earlier in our reviews when this was starting about Ransom, about Chris O'Donnell not sounding like Chris O'Donnell at all, and
Jerry O'Connell. God damn it! I do that. I don't know why I keep
an amazing singer.
Right from Batman and Robin. Yes, Jerry O'Donnell. Geez. How Jerry O'Donnell does not sound like him at all. Okay, I get that.
I thought you said Chris Cornell.
No, not Chris Cornell.
We're just doing all this dumb shit.
We're in totally alternate dimensions. Yeah.
Look, it's been like 2 hours.
Right.
Brain is we're good.
But for Q, it almost seemed like did the voice director tell him to not sound like Q? Why doesn't he? Am I the only one that got that? It seemed like this isn't John Delancey doing this, or he's doing some different portrayal. This isn't Q.
Nope.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
It wasn't as QE as I was thinking, because Q is very like animated with the way he talks. I'm a capitan, I'm me, and it wasn't really like that. It was especially in the first time we see him pop up onto the bridge in the flashback for the bridge crew when they go to get to the chess scene. It really, and at that moment, I totally am with you on that. I think it was better voice acting at the end, but I do agree.
I just thought he was being a lot more, I don't really know the word. I felt like it was a bit more exaggerated, but it still felt like Q to me. So, but and
exaggerated, I think that was it, which I believe is as good as this show has been, as detailed as it's been. I can't imagine that they would have let that go like that, unless it was one of those things where because a lot of the voice actors did all of their recordings at home because the quarantine happened, COVID happened. Basically, they had to turn their homes, rooms in their homes into little studios. All of these voice recordings were happening at their own locations, so it was very possible that they gave John Delancey, say, okay, here's your lines, recorded as Q. They got that, and I don't know if it was just do we go back and tell this guy, hey, you don't sound like Q, or should we just keep our mouth shut and just roll with it? But when you talk about kind of the over exaggeration, that reminds me of Adam West in his later life, whenever he would do portrayals of Batman or Bruce Wayne, Batman from the 60s. I went back and I rewatched the series, Batman 1966 series. And the way that he played Bruce Wayne and Batman was not like how he acted later. It was almost like later in life when he did it, he was playing Adam West playing Batman. It was almost like a kind of a roundabout circle, like a caricature of himself, because it was not how he originally did it. If you go back and watch it, you'll just be like, okay, wait a minute, what was all this exaggeration of how he was and how he's done it later in life when they were making fun of it? That's not how he did it. And it's the same with William Shatner playing Kirk. We get all these exaggerations about Shatner's speech pattern, how he played Kirk, et cetera, et cetera. I did a rewatch of the original series. I didn't see it. There were maybe some slight times, possibly, but not the way we've turned it into a meme with how stunted his portrayal of Kirk was. So I don't know where that comes from, because if you go back and watch all of the original series, you're going to be hard pressed to find that moment that was what we're basing that off of. So that's where I'm thinking, maybe if you're away from a character for so long, you kind of have this thing in your mind where you're thinking, you misremember it. You misremember how someone was played, how a character was voiced, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Jerry Ryan has said that when she was starting to shoot Picard as Seven, she was very nervous because it had been such a long time. So it's like, I'm sure it's very common, and actors are different people. So they're going to have changed, and maybe their portrayal will change as well. Right. Yeah, I totally get it. Dag, I want to make sure we have time to get to like what you want to talk about.
Yep.
Because you've mentioned a few times to me that you have a theory and you wanted to share it at the end. So we've hit the conclusion of the episode review. Now let's talk with Dag.
All right. Indulge me for a moment.
Okay.
Put your tinfoil hats on and follow me down this rabbit hole. This episode is a love letter to the fandom that appreciates what it watches, debates some of the weaker points, and still supports the writers and the producers in creating more Star Trek. Recast this episode thinking of the Arbitrator as online trolls, our four Lower Deckers as the fandom of goodwill, the fandom that does defend and engages in these debates, and our senior staff on trial, essentially looks like it's on trial. Our senior staff is the writers and the executives of Star Trek. And what you get is the fandom constantly getting pushed into these situations by online trolls to defend the writers' decisions. They're always going over like, well, what about Discovery? Well, what about Picard? Well, what about these things that are happening lower decks? Where's the continuity? And they're pushing and pushing and pushing. They're moving the goalposts. They're making us come up with ever exaggerated arguments to try to make sense of it, because that's what we do as fans. We try to make sense of things. The trolls are always shooting it down. No, you're not right. You're not right. You're not right. They're looking for their 22 minutes of fame. Boimler even does a really impassioned defense. If you think of him as that fan who comes to the defense of the writers, he's saying, look, the writers make mistakes. Think about all the references in this episode, and I have them bullet pointed, to things that we as the fans, we have sat there and gone, yeah, those are kind of missteps. You've got Roga Daner in The Hunted. Some people don't even remember that episode. Khan's thick chest is a parody. Uhura's naked desert dance. There's a lot of people that did not care for that. Tasha's weak-ass death in Skin of Evil. Mark Twain with a gun sounds super crazy out of context unless you've seen Time Zero. Sub Rosa, wildly panned as one of the worst episodes of The Next Generation. A 50-foot Spock, that's obnoxious. Remember Me? That was a forgettable episode. Remember Me. The Remans, also debated as one of the ridiculous inclusions of Nemesis. Q's Robin Hood instance, people look at that and they're like, this doesn't make any sense. There's all these references crammed into this episode saying, look at all the missteps that have been made in the animated series and The Next Generation.
The board too.
And why don't, and Q in the very first episode, they got so many hate letters about Q in the first season. Nobody liked Q, and he's in this episode too. And so these are all instances where the fandom has gone, yeah, that happened. We move forward. It's also instances of The Next Generation, the animated series, the original series, which by and large are considered the classic, the golden years of Trek. And the trolls never touch that. They don't ever want to talk about that. They always hand wave all the things that happened, all the writer mistakes there, to focus on new Trek. And it was just really, like, as I rewatched this episode, I was like, man, the writers are really doing a good job getting to that meta level to say, hey, for you fans who've stuck around and who have, you've noticed the missteps, but you stick by the franchise, thank you. And the trolls are just looking for their fame. And when Boimler points it out, suddenly the troll, the arbiter, backsteps and goes, no, you were never on trial. This is a celebration. And it's sort of like gaslighting, like you were on a trial and, oh, we're gonna change the context of what you thought this was. And Boimler, he just goes on and on. He nails it. And then he sits there and he drops the horn of candor and he says, Drumhead. Recognize the episode Drumhead, widely regarded by some trolls as like, Picard's word from the first step forged, or for the first link forged. And the Drumhead is basically an authority figure. Somebody who thinks they're an authority figure is looking for a villain to try and execute. And the fandom in this episode is stepping up in the form of Boimler and saying, there is no trial here. You're insane. There's no villain. Stop looking for it. It becomes a party. And we end up back on the Cerritos, where the senior staff, as the writers, are telling the fans, as Boimler, Tendi, Rutherford, and Mariner, hey, you know what? You're right. We do make missteps, but we're going to try to be more transparent. We're going to try to do harder. And then that's when sort of the joke plays through, where they're like, wait, tell us all the secret details. And the senior staff is like, no. The eel pit of death. I just
blew my mind.
You're welcome. And I have been writing this and writing this for like days, trying to put it in order.
Like he mentions, with the Crusher and the lamp thing, he mentions that. And then, like you said, And then in the same vein, he mentions Giant Spock in the same sentence. And then the first thing he mentions was, did Picard know about the Borg? Right. And people always talk about how when you first see the Borg, they're actually menacing, but then like Voyager neutered the Borg.
Exactly.
So like it's that kind of stuff, like the writer's mistakes. Like you're totally right. And I think like my mind is like spinning right now because Trek is ultimately a celebration and not a trial. And the senior staff rescues the troll. Like Trek still embraces the troll as a fan because it's Trek. And I don't know, like it's a wonderful, wonderful message. I'm totally on board. What were you going to say about the eels? I'm excited.
Well, okay. Well, it's just the eels. Eels were like another one of those details that the writers meta are telling the audience, oh, we're not going to go into detail about this. Because when Mariner's getting dragged out of the celebration silo, she's like, what about the eels? And he's like, you don't get to know. What about the eels? No eels, no eels. And I was like, they're bantering back and forth, but you never understand the eels. Now, I've got so many points here, and I don't want to, like, maybe I'll engage online with what this is about if people are like super interested. But the keystone to this is, and I'm a big fan of riddles and puzzles, and I've been trying to do this throughout the series and not much has come up, but I took the name of the planet, Ketuvon, and the name of our arbiter, Klar, and I ran them through an anagram generator. And on the anagram generator, I specified, because I could see the letters were present in Ketuvon and Klar, I specified one of the output words from the anagrams needs to be Trek. It needs to be Trek. There was only one result. If you run these letters through an anagram generator and you ask for the anagram generator to spit out Trek in addition to the other letters, you get one result. And that result is vocal new Trek. And it's about the people who were vocal about new Trek, i.e. Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, maybe even the JJ movies. The trolls hit those hard, and they consider Enterprise, Voyager, and all the ones that came out before as like ineffable canon. They never talk about it. They never want to engage it. They never want to talk about the stumbles that were made in those series. They always want to focus on how horrible Kurtzman is and J.J. Abrams and the other behind the scenes creators of the new Star Trek that we have now. And I was just like blown away when I was like, wow, there's this anagram.
Okay.
Wow.
So where does this thought fit that I have? Because I'm totally on board with what you're saying, and I can see that. But I need you to help me place this thought, because I don't know what the conclusion to it is. Okay.
I'm ready. Hit me.
So I get the whole, they went over all these tropes about the missteps of Trek, how the trolls fervently attack anything new, any of the new Trek, but leave the older stuff alone. And we mentioned the drumhead. The drumhead, that speech is, if you find a right winger or conservative that knows nothing about Star Trek but wants to protect his or her privilege and right for any attack of words, racism, hate, prejudice, et cetera, they know the drumhead speech. That is almost like memorized. And that is like absolutely not what that speech is about. However, it often gets co-opted as a means of this speech from your beloved Star Trek protects my right to attack blacks, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, Jews, Mexicans, whoever I want, because if you censor me, then with the first link forged, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I want to interrupt there because I want to clarify for the audience who's listening and watching us what that speech is supposed to mean. Very succinctly, very short. That is a member of a military defending other members of the military for which that person is in charge against abuses by the state. That's what that means. It is not about people arguing fandom online. That is one of the worst corruptions and intentions of that speech. We're talking about the real world. We are talking about abuses by the state. That's what that speech is set up to defend against.
Right.
Go ahead, Jay.
Right. So where does that fit with the missteps? Is it possible that there's some kind of like, we have this thing, we had this speech, it was supposed to be profound, it was supposed to be great, but yet we've unfortunately seen it fall into the hands of the people, supremacists, racists, that use that to protect them being able to do or say whatever they want.
I likened that to being co-opted by ingenuine trolls who try to tear down new Star Trek and force the fans into compromising positions to defend it, and then tear down those fans when they can't argue against it. And I think Boimler's reference and pointing out of the drumhead is actually just pointing his finger at the trolls and saying, there is no villain here. Stop looking for one. This is Star Trek. Enjoy it, engage the fandom, try to, come up with good continuity here, but stop hating so hard on the writers and the producers of this franchise.
And stop using the drumhead to justify all of the things that you're saying, personal attacks.
Right. To justify a witch hunt that doesn't exist.
Correct.
It's all about getting likes and clicks and engagement on social media. They don't even care what their arguments are. They're completely ingenuine. They're designed to rile up the fan base, bring people like us to rush to defend, and then make fun of us when we get there. They don't care. So stop engaging.
Baby girl.
Right.
I'm not going to spend my time doing that. Who does that?
You're fighting with people that wake up in the morning.
Back. Don't worry about trolls.
They wake up in the morning saying, okay, well, what does Ben Shapiro say I'm supposed to say today?
Who's that?
This is not that podcast.
I don't know who that is.
We will keep you blissfully ignorant on that.
It'll be unfortunate.
Okay, I know who wet ass P word is. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was trying to say I am in denial of his existence.
If we think hard enough, we can make
Am I never sarcastic?
It's hard to. You have a tell. When you're being sarcastic, you raise your left eyebrow. When you're not, your eyebrows stay level.
I love this.
And then you're wearing a beanie, which covers up. Yeah, right.
We are friends outside of this. I love these guys so much. I have one more meta reference that was pointed out to me.
Okay.
It doesn't really have anything to do with my whole like meta against the troll thing, but it was really cool how this episode of Lower Decks mirrors the TNG episode Lower Decks, in that we get members of the Lower Decks on the Enterprise who are all kind of a part of this super secret operation, but they don't all know what's happening. Yes. And that's what's happening in this episode of Lower Decks, is you've got the Lower Deckers who are all a part of the operation, but they don't all have the big picture.
They're just told, this is what you do. This is what you do. Point your phaser here and fire. Don't ask me any questions. And you're going to be in this shuttle with this makeup episode. Right. They were told, you do this, and that's just it. Don't ask me why, just do it. So yeah, you're right. This was a great callback to that. And and then the closing thought that I want to give on this episode is that this was probably one of the penultimate episodes of, this is your bottle episode. This is your episodic content you've always wanted, with serialized character tones. You have an issue, you have a problem that you need to figure out a solution to, which happens in this episode. And yes, you have the humor and the happenstance along the way, but then you get to the end where that lesson is learned. That lesson is learned, that speech is done, and we thought we were on trial, but we weren't. That cultural or the race misunderstanding kind of thing.
Very Trek ending.
Solve your problem.
Spot on.
move on to
You're
the next
spot on,
episode.
Jay.
Yes.
Well done. Well thought.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled with this episode. It was my favorite yet. The storytelling was brilliant. The pacing was brilliant. The flashbacks were amazing. I loved how they left us in the unknown. They did not force feed us any kind of intel at all. I love the nuggets as always. And Dag, at the end, your theory, I got chills. Took my breath away.
That was a great one. Great theory.
Yes.
Wow. That's why I love doing this podcast with you guys.
I'm hoping this gets back to McMahan, and if it was intended by the writers, we see you. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, way to go for giving us something to dig deep into like that.
Oh yeah. We appreciate those. Yeah.
And if they actually do listen to us, Watney, you want to tell them where they can find us?
Oh yeah.
I would love to do that. So you can listen to us on anchor.fm. That is syndicated to any podcast listening platform that we know of. So check us out there. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Beyond Trek. We'd love your support there. If you want to talk to us, check us out on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod. That's run by Dag. And then on Instagram, Beyond Trek Podcast. We do have a Facebook, facebook.com/Beyond Trek Productions. Like us and follow us there. And as always, you can watch these episodes on YouTube where you can see our faces and a deck of screenshots that Dag so graciously puts together. And I would like to give, of course, a very special shout out to two of our supporters. Stephanie Baker, you support us on Patreon and Anchor. Thank you so much. And Jim Cook, an Anchor donator. We love you both. Thank you very much for the support. And yes, if you stuck around to the end, thank you for listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Yes. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, hopefully soon we will be on Amazon Music or Audible. Oh. Is that like the same? Are they two different things, or is it?
Amazon owns Audible, so we're just going to be there.
Yeah. So that will be.
And I also.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind the listeners and the viewers that there's only 2 episodes left of Lower Decks.
Wow. 2 episodes left. Yep. And then we start our 13-week of Discovery review. So buckle in, strap tight. I'm going to be in for more. Please come back next week. We'll see you next week. So let's do that. Live long and prosper.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.